Don't sell your house as is. At least not until you understand what those two words could actually cost you. Because most homeowners who say, I'm selling it as is, they mean one thing, and most buyers hear something completely different. And that gap between what you know and what the buyer fears could cost you significantly more than just doing the work. I get it. You've lived in this house for the last 20 years. The kitchen's dated, the floors need replacing. There are repairs that you've been putting off for years. And now you're moving. The last thing that you want to do is spend the next 3 months renovating a house that you're about to leave. So selling it as is feels like it's the easier move. No contractors, no budgets, no delays, no stress. But easier doesn't always mean less expensive, because you're not just selling the house in its current condition. You're selling the buyer all the uncertainty that comes with it. And buyers, they charge you for that uncertainty. Here's how things actually play out in the real world. Let's say that your home needs about $25,000 worth of work. You might think, fine, a buyer will just offer me $25,000 less. I'll take it. But buyers don't calculate it that clearly. They see worn flooring and start wondering about what's underneath. They see a stain near a window and they start to wonder if there's water damage inside the walls. They see an older kitchen and they start thinking about the appliances, the electrical, the plumbing, everything that they might have to replace. They don't know if the problem is a $25,000 problem. It could be $40,000. It could be $75,000. And because they don't know, they want to protect themselves. That's the advice that they're going to get. They reduce their offer. They add a cushion. They negotiate harder, or they plain and simple just walk away. I call that the uncertainty tax. It's not based on what the repairs will actually cost. It's based on what the buyer is afraid that they might cost. And that number is almost always bigger than what it actually costs. There's another piece that most homeowners miss. The buyer isn't just calculating the price of the work. They're calculating the inconvenience. Hiring contractors, living through renovations, delaying the move-in, managing permits, quotes, and unexpected problems. So even when a repair costs just $20,000, the buyer might want a $35,000 or $40,000 discount. Not because they're trying to take advantage of you, in some cases they might be, but more because they're being asked to take on the cost, the work, and the risk that you decided that you didn't want to take on. That's the trade-off. You save yourself the aggravation, but you pay the buyer a premium to accept it. Now, and this is important, I'm not saying to go renovate your entire house before selling. That can be an equally bad financial decision. People spend $80,000 renovating and assume that they've automatically added $80,000 or more in value, and it doesn't work that way. The buyer might not like your finishing. The market might shift while the work is being done, and you might improve things that buyers in that neighborhood don't even value. And some properties, they genuinely are better sold as is. Maybe the house needs major structural work. Maybe most buyers are going to tear it down anyway. Maybe you need to sell fast and the math just doesn't support the time and cost of renovating. Selling as is not an automatic mistake. Selling as is without doing the math and without making these considerations, that's the mistake. The real question isn't should I renovate or sell as is? The real question is which option leaves me with more money after everything is considered? Let me show you what I mean. Say you can sell today for $900,000 as is, or you spend $25,000 on strategic improvements and can sell it for $955,000. On the surface, the second option puts you $30,000 ahead, but then you have to account for the extra mortgage payments while the work is being done, property taxes, insurance, utilities, the cost of borrowing the renovation money, and the risk that the market moves while you're waiting. Now, with these considerations, you're comparing this decision properly and as it should be, not emotionally, not based on the highest possible number, based on what you're actually likely to walk away with, your true cost and opportunity cost. Here's what's interesting. The answer isn't always a major renovation. Sometimes the biggest return comes from simply removing the things that make buyers nervous. Fresh paint, new flooring, better lighting, minor repairs, fixing visible damage, getting quotes for work that will still needs to be done, but you're giving them the quotes and then they can realize that it's not as bad as they think, and that potentially could eliminate some of the risk. In some cases, even pre-listing inspections can help, because when buyers understand the condition that that the property's in, then they can make the decision that's right for them. When they don't understand, they start making assumptions, and usually they assume the worst. And risk gets deducted from their offer every single time. They're going to offer you less the more risky they feel the situation. You may not need to make the home perfect. You only need to make the buyer understand. Now, here's where I come in. A lot of homeowners, they know the work should be done, but they don't have $20,000 or $30,000 sitting in a bank account. That doesn't mean selling as is your only option. If there's sufficient equity in the property, there may be ways to access funds before the sale. A home equity line of credit, a secured line, a refinance, or another short-term financing solution. But, and this is important, borrowing money to renovate doesn't automatically make it a good investment. The numbers still have to work out, and you still have to do that assessment. If borrowing $25,000 could realistically protect $50,000 or $60,000 of your equity, it might be worth exploring. If you need to borrow $75,000 to potentially increase the sale by $40,000, it might not make sense for you in this situation. The financing should support a good decision. It shouldn't justify a bad one. Before you list anything as is, have two conversations. First, talk to a knowledgeable local realtor and ask them what the house could realistically sell for today. Then ask what it would sell for if you completed specific improvements. Not a full renovation, but specific work. And sometimes a realtor will tell you that exact work, what improvements you need to do, and how that can increase the list price or the price that someone's going to be willing to pay for it. Second, talk to a mortgage professional. Ask what it would cost you to access the funds if you needed to get extra funds and what risks you'd be taking. Then put those two conversations together. Expected sale price, cost of the work, cost of the financing, cost of waiting, and what you actually walk away with under each option. Now you're making a decision based on the full picture. Not emotion, not convenience, the full picture. Look, there's no universal answer here. Some homeowners should absolutely sell as is. They'll save time, they'll avoid stress, and they'll be able to just move on. Others will unknowingly give away tens of thousands of dollars in equity because they didn't want to deal with a few weeks of repairs. You spent years paying down that mortgage, maintaining that property, building that equity. Before you give part of that away for convenience, make sure you understand exactly what you're trading. If you're thinking about selling a property that needs work, start by realistic numbers from your realtor. And if access to the money is the issue, come talk to me before you decide that selling as is your only option. We can look at the equity, the borrowing cost, and whether financing the work would actually improve your final position. Not every repair is worth doing, but you should know the numbers before the buyer decides what your uncertainty is worth. I'm Aleem. I'll see you on the next one.